Today in Geometry B, we're going to be working on our test review for Chapter 9, which focused on transformations, which include translations, reflections, rotations, and dilations or size changes. So we are going to be using several of the rules that we've been using throughout this chapter in order to complete that. So let's take a look at our first problem. It says in the diagram, the dashed figure is the image of the solid one. So in other words, this is your pre-image and this is your image. It says name the image of angle E. So first of all, when we were doing this in class, it was a lot easier to go through and match up points. So first of all, I want you to take a look at how the slanted line is right here, and that matches up with the slanted line here. Now E is kind of at the end of that diagonal line and the end of the long one. So the end of the diagonal line and the long one would be here. So these two would match up, which means that D and Q would have to match up. And down the diagonal line from E is F. So down the diagonal line from R is S. And then C and T would be the last one. Sorry, that's kind of dark. I didn't want to do the whole thing. So if I'm looking at these, I want to first of all match them up, because it almost looks like you'd have to take this first shape and slide it down and flip it in order to be able to sit it on top of this one. So that's kind of interesting. So first of all, it says, what does angle E match with? Well, E matches with angle R. DE is green to yellow because they want you to find the image of DE. So green to yellow on this one would be QR. Now the key to this problem is getting this really set up the right way. And I will tell you, after all the stuff we've kind of looked at with this one, sorry, I'm just trying to make it a little better so you can see it. All the stuff we've looked at in this section, it's a lot easier if you get the picture mapped out as far as the highlighter technique and then go back and do anything else. Okay, let's look at our next one. The vertices of the triangle are P, which is -3, 8, Q, -6, -4, and R, which is 1, 1. It says name the vertices of the image reflected in the x-axis. So we're going to set these up just like we did before with our original. Actually, why don't I put that on top? Original and image. And if I'm going to be able to reflect over the x-axis, my rule is I start out with xy. If it reflects over the x-axis, x stays the same and y becomes opposite. Now it's important that I can set that up from the very beginning, because then my only job is to put P, Q, and R here just the way they're written, because of course this is our regular column. So P is -3, 8. Q is -6, -4. R is 1, 1. And what's nice about this is they don't even really want us to graph it. They just want us to go through and tell what the images are for each of these. Now, I can look at this and tell that x stays exactly the same. So I'm going to go through and look at my points, and I'm going to do my x value first. So, and leave them just the same. So this will be -3, -6, and 1. And my y values flip sign. They become opposite of whatever they were. So +8 becomes -8. -4 becomes +4. And 1 becomes -1. So if I look at my choices of answers on number 3, C is the only one that has the right points. Okay, let's try the next one. Okay, you have the vertices of a triangle are P, which is -2, -4, Q, which is 2, -5, and R, which is -1, -8. Name the vertices of the image reflected in the y-axis. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do our original in my image. And I know that if I'm going to make this rule, when it reflects over the y-axis, y is the one that stays the same. And x becomes opposite. So let's go through. Let me get another color here. And I'm going to do P, Q, and R. So P is -4 or -2, -4. Two, -5. -1, -8. And then I'm going to go through over here and I'm going to figure out my P prime, Q prime, and R prime. So on all of these, the y values stay the same. So I'm going to go through and just do those first. So -4 stays -4, and -5 stays -5, and -8 is -8. And then these are going to be opposites. So -2 becomes +2, 2 becomes -2, -1 becomes 1. Now, if I want to look at these, I want to find the one that matches up with them. And C is the only one. So far in 3 and 4 we've had to solve it, but we haven't even had to graph it, which is a big improvement over what we did in that section. Okay, on number 5, which graph shows a triangle and its reflection over the x-axis? So first of all, I'm just going to go through and highlight the x-axis so we know where we're keeping our eyes focused. If I do that, the only one that has two things on the opposite side of D, or on the opposite side of the x-axis, is D. And so when we look, remember, we want to make sure that we have mirror image points. And these two look like mirror images of each other. So your answer would be D. Pretty straightforward. Okay, describe in words a translation represented by the vector 2, -1. So first of all, if it's a vector 2, -1, I want to just show you what that looks like in a rule. In a rule, whatever x and y started out as, if that's the vector that describes it, this is the rule that it made. So I assume that's a +2, so it'll be x + 2, and the -1 becomes y - 1, which means that if it adds 2, it has to move 2 to the right, and if it's -1, then that means it moves 1 down. So if I look at these 2 units to the right and 1 unit down would be A. Okay, use an ordered pair to translate for the translation of 6 units to the left. First of all, 6 units to the left, if I were looking at an x and y axis, would be 6 units that way. So that would have to be a -6. And if I go 4 units up, and this is my x and y axis, if I go 4 up, it's going to be up here, that's going to be +4. So we're looking for -6, +4, which would be B. Okay, here's my x and y axis. Let's mark the next one. 8 units to the right, so 8 units to the right would be over here. That would be +8. And 2 units up, that would be a +2. So I'm looking for 8, 2, which would be B. Okay, now, this says find the vector that describes a translation of B to A. So I just want to show you a little bit of what I do. So let me make sure this isn't too big. Okay, I need to go from B to A. So I'm going to have to look at 2 movements. So if I go this way, remember they're counting by 2's here. So 1 and then 2 would be 3, 5, 7, and 8. So I'd move over 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I would go 14 up. So that description would be 8, 14. Now this one says find the image of the translation by the vector from image of C by 4, -10. So if I look at C, it wants me to move over 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 would be halfway. So let me see if I can mark my line here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to change my color, my line here, just so it's easier to follow. Oh, crap. Hang on, let me fix it. Okay. And then it wants me to go down 10. So if I start here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if I were to follow that, it would make me end up with going to this point right here, which means that the image would be B. So remember, you're just using these +4 and then -10 to help us actually move around on the actual grid. Okay, now these ones are easy. Write a rule to describe the transformation that has a reflection in the x-axis. So if I'm reflecting over the x-axis, x stays the same and y becomes the opposite. So in looking at this one, the only one that happens on is D. Now, this one, write a rule to describe the reflection over the y-axis. So this is one where y stays the same and x is the opposite, which means it's going to be B. So as long as you have your list of rules, those should be pretty straightforward to do. Okay. Which translation from a solid figure to the dash figure is given by -3, 3? So first of all, I'm just going to dissect this a little bit. So -3 means, let me just draw my x and y axis here. -3 on the x-axis means that I would have had to have moved back 3 in this direction. That's what that -3 was. And the +3 on the y means that I went up 3. So I want to look at where from solid to dashed, it looks like it moves to the left and then moves up. Now this one goes to the right and down. Can't be that one. This one goes to the left but goes down. Not that one. This one goes to the right and up. Not that one. So this one goes to the left and goes up. This is the only one that fits that. So that's C. So actually you have to almost take this part and dissect it a little bit in order to be able to get where it's going to go. Okay. Let's take a look at this next one. On this one it says that you have a triangle and you have this hexagon that are regular. And it also says that they have 30-degree angles in here. It says find the angle of rotation around O that maps Q onto F. So they want to go from Q onto F. So 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 118, 210, 214, 270, 300. So that would be 300 degrees. Now this one I think is one of the hardest ones on there just because people have a hard time thinking about it. So I just want to get this set up. So first of all, D and H match up. I'm going to actually highlight them. E and I and F and G. So they want to figure out how you can go from this one to this one. So any of the other triangles on there you can completely ignore. Okay? Now, first of all, I just want to talk about a couple things. Reflection over the x equals 5. So first of all, x equals 5 because these count by 2. 2, 4, 5 would be this line. If I were reflecting, this triangle would be way over here somewhere. So I know it can't be that. If I do a rotation of 150 degrees or 180 degrees, really I have to know something about the points. So let's just start by doing this. I'm going to go through and list. Oh, I'm going to have to wait. Hang on.